Yes, welcome to the No Stay Project. Short video, I hope. I don't like to do videos like this. I shouldn't have to do some, but it's unfortunate that somebody that I actually had some respect for and some what I thought was mutual respect, Larken Rose, has decided, well, it turns out that the respect is not mutual. That he unleashed a torrent of insults against me when I just made a friendly request and an invitation to come on my show, which, as you see, he's been on the show more than a few times, and we've always had good, friendly discussions. So it turns out that the respect was not mutual. The lack of respect, though, is now mutual, and that's why because he insulted me, I'm cutting toxic people out of my life. There's no reason for me to have personal communication or interaction with people who are insulting. So I do my best to clear those people out. And there's no reason. I'm not friends with Larkin. I thought we had a professional relationship, or colleagues in that sense. But it was a one-way street. Larkin just puts up, at least with me, he was feigning respect for whatever reasons. But I do want to address the crap that he has put on Facebook about me. And so I had this picture, and I didn't take the picture with Larkin in mind, but it turns out it is a perfect representation of Larkin's arguments on more than one level. One, it's trash, and so that's what his arguments are. But then on a deeper level, it's a great visual example of his actual claims against me and against veganism, as we'll go through. So I just briefly, before I explain that, I do want to point out too, Larkin has a very simplistic type of way of arguing or debating. And so when he doesn't have a good rational argument, which he never presented an ethical argument for needlessly killing animals, he thinks it's ethical to needlessly kill animals, but he doesn't give a reason why other than to say that I'm a hypocrite. We're all hypocrites. But not ethical to kill a gorilla, but it is ethical to kill a pig. So anyway, this is a visual, example of his trashy argument, if you could call it an argument. And so here, I don't know anybody. The garbage was brought to this store because that particular store, fast food place, is not in this parking lot. It was brought from several miles away. So you see, they just dumped it on the ground, even though there's a trash bin right in front, and they had to walk past it to get into the store, because what you see in the middle of the video, the picture, there's only one entrance to the store. You either go through there, or if you work, you go through the back. So there are also one on each side of the door. There's two more trash bins. Now, they had to walk past 3 trash bins in order to get in the store, but they still dumped it on the floor anyway. That is a perfect example of the bad form of Larkin's actual claim against veganism, or me in particular. It's doing something that is wrong. You could have avoided it, but you didn't. So this is a dick move. And anybody who wants to say that this is okay, you've got real problems. And it's sort of like Larkin in that he wasn't interested in an argument or a friendly discussion on his actual position and then have me argue and ask questions with him. He just wanted to be right and rant for 28 minutes. Well, the video was, and I don't recommend watching it. But even though straw man is his go-to thing, I'm going to have the actual screen cap, so you'll see his actual words. Now, he may delete that, but I have the screen caps for now. So until he deletes it, if he does, and I don't know if he will, that's speculation, you'll be able to see that everything here is accurate and that I'm not strawmanning anything. So I will address his arguments, his position, and I will address his questions. But if he's going to straw man it and whatnot, let him scream and rant and rave. But rational adults will be able to see through his really flimsy tactics. So let's go through them one by one. Okay, so let's start first by getting Larkin's position actually correct so we know what his position is. This is not an argument, but this is his position, which he does not actually support, other than to accuse me of being a hypocrite and a liar and dishonest and whatnot. He says, yes, I would. As I answered Mark before, no, I don't think it's automatically immoral to eat an animal, even if I could live without doing so. On the other hand, he is very conspicuously not answering a very similar question. I just didn't respond to Larkin there because he's just unhinged. He just is he's just insulting, so that's why. But I'm responding. I'll be responding now. He also says, Nathan, yes, as I've said before, I do pay other people to raise and kill animals that I then eat, even though I could survive without doing that. See how easy it is to answer a simple question. Okay, so that's his actual position, which does come up again. Okay, so here Larkin is saying, I kill things. Now he's avoiding the issue, and he says, you kill things merely for your own convenience and for your own preferred style living. So does everyone. Denying something that simple is and obvious makes a debate pointless. Now, he has had a torrent of responses, and I'm not on Facebook that often, so he thinks that I'm avoiding him. So knowing that I could have like 99 plus notifications and I may not see his, I instant message him. So I said, I instant message because of how many responses there are, and you didn't respond there. Again, you claimed it was not ethical to kill. It was not unethical to kill and eat animals despite not having to meet your nutritional needs. I've repeatedly stated I'm not looking for a debate, but instead an argument so we can both better understand each other's position. I have not seen you post an ethical argument for unjustified killing. I haven't seen it up until that time, and I'm not going to scroll through to try to find it. He says, I like to hear that argument during a show in real time. So the point to be discussed is your, as of yet undisclosed, ethical argument for the unjustified killing of animals. And so he doesn't actually respond by presenting his actual argument. He goes on to he goes on to start being insulting. You kill living things, and a lot of them, unnecessarily, just for your own convenience and to serve your preferred style living. Pretending you don't or pretending you hold some principled position against that is a lie. So I counter that, that he's conflating convenience with unavoidable. He says it's not unavoidable. It's merely convenient for you. Stop lying. I commit widespread slaughter in many ways that would absolutely be avoidable, and not at all necessary for your survival. So do I. See, and what Larkin is doing here is just a classic example of a red herring or an ad hominem or an appeal to hypocrisy. Where an appeal to hypocrisy is really when you avoid engage in an argument or a discussion where you're criticized and you answer criticism with criticism. So I know he answered this, and he thinks it kind of gets him out of this hole, because he said that he's saying that he says, I'm not pointing to just your hypocrisy, but I'm saying we're all hypocrites. But it doesn't help his position out any when he's trying to make an ethical or avoiding making an ethical argument for needlessly killing and eating animals. Saying that we're all hypocrites does not make his argument. And so he can rant and rave and yell straw man and whatnot. Just because you answer a criticism with a criticism, and that is a broad criticism on everybody, doesn't make his argument any more sound. So it's just a bad argument. And yeah, I know he disagrees with that, but he answered a criticism with criticism. Or when I ask him for his argument that it's ethical to kill and eat animals when he knows and says that he doesn't have to, by turning around and saying that I slaughter animals needlessly, okay, because there's 2 points to this. We got the fallacies, and then he's got his facts wrong. But for him to turn around and say that I'm a hypocrite and that I'm pretending and I'm lying, that I'm not just, it's not unavoidable, I go out of my way and I do it out of convenience, now that does not help his position one iota. It doesn't help it at all. It's still a garden variety appeal to hypocrisy. It doesn't help just because Larkin is ranting, but I'm not saying that Mark's just the hypocrite. I'm saying we're all hypocrites. And remember that picture of the trash, right? That's going to go a long way to also, visually representing how bad Larkin's argument is here. The other part of it is that he's actually turning around and saying that I'm being dishonest because I am needlessly and unnecessarily killing animals. Well, one, Larkin he presents some argument, some examples here, driving unnecessarily. That's a that's a part of modern life, and some of us don't have the option of not driving. So it's unavoidable. The fact I can't ride a bicycle to California, so it's not, it's not unavoidable. There are going to be, and even if there are some where it is avoidable, there is an ethical dilemma there. It does not defeat the original argument, though, that it is wrong to kill and eat animals when they pose no threat to you. So he also gives the example, eating vegetables grown by farmer who mass slaughters animals. I don't know if that's true. He presents no actual facts or studies. I've counted with studies that show that the estimates or the actual stats on how many animals are actually killed directly from vegetables is not nearly as high as Larkin thinks. And that's unavoidable. You're talking about your food source. And it is ethical to protect your food source, even if it's going out and deliberately killing an animal. So if there's a bear that's in my food source and I need the food to survive, it is ethically allowable and justifiable to get rid of the bear and kill them if necessary. The idea that you can't protect your food supply is really bad arguments from Larken Rose, which that's all you get from Larken Rose when it comes to this point. So that driving unnecessarily doesn't make any sense because I have no choice. Even if I get on public transit, there's still going to be animals killed. There's no avoiding it, and you have to travel. I can't walk. I mean, it's just a dumb argument. Then number 3, how do you or would you evict insect colonies? How would I if they got into I'm protecting my home. I live in Arizona, not quite Australia, but I live in Arizona. I had a 5-inch, I'll have to get a picture up. I had almost a 5-inch scorpion. That could kill one of the little kids that are at my home. So, yes, I would kill termites, of course, because termites can destroy my house. I need the shelter. It's not unavoidable. It's protecting my family. It's protecting my food. It's protecting myself from the elements. So I'm supposed to... You're so desperate to justify killing an animal and eating it needlessly, but you'll still have these stupid arguments. I could give plenty more. No, you couldn't, but I expect you would ignore and or dodge those too. No, the only one who dodges it, because you're putting these stupid things up, is you dodging the actual argument that you are supposed to put forth, since you believe that it is ethical and justified to kill an animal without justification, where it's not a threat to you, in order to pretend that you are abiding by some clear, solid principle that meat eaters don't, but you aren't. Once again, that is avoiding the actual argument that he said. He said it's ethical to kill and eat an animal when it's not justified to do so, when it's not a threat to you and it's not necessary for your health. So I've addressed all 3 of these stupid examples. It is not unavoidable. So regarding that, let's go back to the actual picture of the, and we'll use an analogy. Okay, so we'll use an analogy and show just how stupid this argument of Larkin's is. And remember, his argument is just to avoid putting forth an ethical justification or argument for needlessly killing an animal. And he admits he will kill or pay to have an animal killed that poses no threat to his life or anyone else's, and he doesn't need it for nutrition. He admits that. So all of this is to justify that. Okay, so before I get into the garbage analogy, which we'll get back to the trash, I do want to address this because I was accused of avoiding this. He's saying if I do another video on veganism about my recent video rant discussing how some vegans are dishonest in their message, I only ask that you address this one simple inquiry. Now, again, I'm going to read this, but notice this has nothing to do with Larkin presenting an ethical argument for unjustifiably killing an animal that poses no threat to him. This has nothing to do with that. He's trying to just show that because we're all hypocrites, that therefore he doesn't have to make an ethical argument or even have one. He could just say it's ethical. Okay? So it says, do you personally, knowingly, and intentionally buy vegetables that you know were grown using pesticides to kill anything else that might try to eat them? I've already addressed this. Intentionally killing pests, whether it be small rodents or insects, Intentionally killing something going after your food supply is not unethical. And I do go out of my way to intentionally buy where that is not, where I'm trying to minimize that. Just as I would, while discussing the garbage analogy. So I do. But it's not entirely, you don't know the chain. And so living in a modern Western society, yes, Mesa, Arizona, it would be included in that. It's not always possible to know what the chain was. And it's not always, you're not always able to provide everything by going and actually knowing the farmer. So it's not that I am knowingly and intentionally buying things that may be unavoidable, I may not know. But even if pesticides were used to kill a predator going after my food supply or the company that is producing the food supply, there is nothing unethical about actually protecting your food supply. So I think his question here is really off point, and it's it's nothing more than to justify unjustifiably hurting an animal. And do you, therefore, by way of your purchasing dollars, unnecessarily fund the killing of many hundreds of living animals simply for your own convenience, tastes, and preferences? No. It is to protect the food supply. There is a world. You see, this is something that Larken Rose and and people who believe in his tribe. There is a difference regarding that's unavoidable and what's not. When it is to protect your food supply, it is ethical to protect that. And if it includes and means killing, yes. Now, I don't agree with the pesticides and Monsanto necessarily with the destruction that may be done to the environment. So, but if, as far as just is it ethical to cause the intentional death of an animal or an insect that is destroying your food supply? What half idiot would actually think that that is even a question of ethics? If it's to protect your food supply, which goes to your self-preservation, yeah, hell yes. What if there was somebody who was poisoning your food supply? A human being. It would be ethical to stop them and use whatever force is necessary to stop them from poisoning your food supply. So I've addressed your questions there. So none of that addresses the ethical argument that it's okay to kill and eat an animal when it poses no threat to you. You're presenting issues here that are different. It's a non sequitur. They have nothing to do with it. Protecting your food supply, protecting your the safety of your family. Of course, that's ethical. Self-defense is always morally justified. You, on the other hand, what Larkin is trying to do is to justify non-self-defense killing. And as an anarchist, that is, or just as a human being, that is just wrong. All right, let's wrap up this video on Larken Rose's trash arguments with the trash analogy. And yes, I already know that when you're using an analogy, somebody who does not have a good argument, like Larken Rose, is going to spend more time trying to attack the analogy as opposed to the underlying principles that are trying to be demonstrated. This isn't perfect, but I think it's I think it's as spot on as we can expect with an analogy. His position is that we all engage in the direct or indirect cause of death of animals and insects. Therefore, we're all hypocrites because that's what we do. We all engage in that. So I'm drawing a connection between that and pollution. We all pollute. We all cause pollution. We all cause it. Now, just like with that, with the animals, with killing animals and bugs, we can take steps, and that's what veganism does, is to lessen the impact, to cause less, to take steps, to make choices to cause less harm and suffering and death. And so just like with pollution, and it's a product of Western society, we all have some impact, but we can make choices. We can recycle. I used to, at my old house, I would do composting. So I would do as much as I can with composting to kind of recycle that and be able to use that as fertilizer. So you can make choices to lessen your impact on the environment. Now, if you see in this picture, this individual chose not to. Now, I don't know if Larken Rose would actually defend this, but But he would have to defend this to be consistent. He would have to say that this is perfectly acceptable behavior, that no one should put any judgment on the person who did this just because they could have chose to put it in the trash can. They chose to just put it on the ground and contribute to more pollution, more trash. Larkin would have to argue no one is in a position to make that judgment on them because we all contribute to pollution. So you shouldn't have to take steps, and you don't need to take steps. This is perfectly fine and acceptable behavior. And it's worse than this. I could have gotten a picture of go down to AutoZone, which is right down the street, and I could have got there's always people who leave trash and oil. And so they leave their used oil right in the parking lot. And you could go into the AutoZone and you can just dispose of the oil safely by putting it in the recycle bin that they have for oil. And so if you choose to just put the oil on the ground, instead of going in and disposing of it properly, just like this douchebag who threw the trash on the ground, that's not defensible behavior. That's reprehensible behavior. And so it's the same thing when you have a choice. When you go into that store, when you have a choice in supporting the unnecessary death of an animal by getting a vegetarian or vegan alternative, let's say a veggie burger, and you still choose to get the beef knowing it's an unnecessary death and you don't need to support the death of an animal to get all your nutrition, you are taking the trash and the oil and leaving it on the ground. It is indefensible. Absolutely indefensible. So if you want to be consistent and say that you cannot make a moral judgment when people eat animals as food, when they have a choice, when they don't have to, then you have to support behavior like this. You don't have to do that. It's not necessary. There's a trash can right there. It's the same damn thing. It's the same choice. If you choose to get the beef over the veggie patty, you are throwing the trash on the ground and saying, "Fungal, I don't give a damn. I know I have a choice and I don't care." So just like Larkin rightfully rails about politicians, they don't care, Larken Rose doesn't care about animals. Now he can save a turtle, but he's still going to support the unnecessary death of other animals. It's inconsistent. So to me, it looks sound. If throwing trash on the ground when you have a choice not to, if that's not okay with you, then it's certainly not okay and shouldn't be okay to choose to support death of an animal that wants to live over getting a black bean burger. So I probably could have just used these last few minutes addressing Larkin's, but I wanted to make sure I covered all the ground and there was less to complain about. But hey, that's not going to work out too well either. If you disagree with anything I presented in the video, then you're more than welcome to call into a live broadcast of the No State Project and set me right. We're live twice a week, and I do not screen calls. So if you have a rational argument for killing an animal that poses no threat to you and you don't need to eat animals in order to meet your nutrition, do what Larkin was not able to do and call the show and present your argument and defend it. But till then, salute.